Okay. So I'm going to present a scoping review that we are currently doing on the availability of food composition data in Sub-Saharan Africa. So just a bit of a background on the topic. As we, I think, all know in this room, the micronutrient deficiency is affecting more than 2 billion people. And we can see for this map that the prevalence of zinc deficiency is affecting disproportionately in the low-income countries. Particularly, I will focus in Sub-Saharan Africa. But the data that is being used for this type of analysis is scarce and is missing for some micronutrients. So we couldn't find the same type of map for example, zinc. And then if we zoom into a particular country, we can see that the composition data that is being used is a national level, but we can see that the content of micronutrient, it can change across one country. So if we have a look at this map for Ethiopia and the concentration of zinc, we can see that the value of zinc can vary from very low quantities to almost double up on the dark green. But this is not only the case for zinc in Ethiopia in TEF, but we can see similar patterns for selenium concentration in maize in Malawi. So we can see areas where the concentration of selenium in maize is very low, and then we can see areas where the concentration is very high. Despite these differences, we know that the value and the data that we are using for food composition currently is coming mainly from the US. So with this in mind, we decided to have a look and see what are the actual data availability for Sub-Saharan Africa in terms of micronutrient content. So the objective of our scoping review, it was to assess the availability and geographic location of food composition data used to estimate micronutrients like calcium, iron, iodine, zinc, and selenium that are used for estimating intake risks of deficiencies. So as a method, we use a scoping review following the PRISMA guidelines, and the criteria that we use, we include studies that they were assessing dietary assessment of calcium, iodine, iron, selenium, and zinc, and they report the use of food composition table. Also, we included food composition table that they report the content of calcium, iodine, iron, selenium, and zinc, and they were meant to be used in Sub-Saharan countries. So with that in mind, again, the primary outcome was the list of food composition tables and data set to be used in Sub-Saharan Africa, and the secondary outcome was the availability of those nutrients and the actual geographic location of those data sets. So with that, we create a search strategy with the words related to food composition data and nutrient content. We use subject heading and free text. We use expert search for the countries in Sub-Saharan Africa. We use no filter, no limits. The website the electronic database that we searched were Medline, Embase, Global Health, and African-wide information. And then we did as well a search in Gray literature, like the FAO Input website for Africa, Nutri2, Langwa, World Nutrient Database for dietary studies. And we use the search checklist from the PRISMA to ensure the systematic search. So going straight to the results. So we have 921 studies. And then after the duplication of the study, we have 688. We retrieve, after inclusion, exclusion, and retrieve and non-retrieve, we have 106 studies that they reported the use of food composition table for Sub-Saharan Africa. And from those, we identified 68 food composition table, unique food composition table for the region. Then from the website, we have 333, after inclusion and exclusion, 61. And then in total, we identified 69 food composition table for the region. So this map shows where the actual food composition data is being used for this study. So when we identified the study, we identified the food composition table that they cited that they were used. So the number one was the US. So it means that if we are estimating, for example, selenium, we are using data from the US. And I don't know if you all know, but the selenium in soil in the US is very high. So if you use that value to estimate, for example, data in Malawi, where they have very low selenium in soil, then you probably will be overestimating the data sets. Just for you to know, the second most cited food composition table, it was from 1969, which is quite old. So you can imagine the type of data that will be in that food composition table. Then moreover, when we look at the geographic scope of those food composition table, only 17 countries from the 46 countries were represented, or they provide a national food composition table. From those, 7 of the most recent food composition table for those countries were 10-year-old or older. For those food composition table, only 4 reported iodine and 6 reported selenium. And from those, only 6 reported information related to where the actual food composition data was coming from. So the conclusion is that most of the study that we evaluated reported data from the US, or they were obsolete, that the food composition data availability for Sub-Saharan Africa is sparse, that the micronutrient data gaps, particularly iodine and selenium, may hamper the ability to produce intakes estimate, and the reporting level of those food composition table was needs particular attention regarding methods and the geographic location of the mineral macronutrients. And lastly, just thank you for listening, and thank you to the team that support this work.
Excellent.